Chronic migraine is 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for adults with migraine with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It prevents, on average, 8 to 9 headache days a month versus 6 to 7 for placebo.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Ask your doctor and visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Kieran, how are you at this very moment? Where are you?
I am currently in Luft 14. I've hired an apartment because living in a hotel every week for weeks upon end isn't fun, and I think I might have made a bit of an error. It's not quite as good as it looked on the tin.
Yeah, well, my suggestion is, Kieran, stop booking hotels from tins.
Yes.
Sorry, it doesn't look that salubrious, I have to say, Kieran, but there you go. You remain chipper in all circumstances. I should point out, Kieran, you may hear some excitement in the background just at the moment because circumstantial evidence would suggest that Smudge has eaten a wasp. I don't know if there are any pub vets out there that could tell us what to do in the circumstances, but if there are, it'll be way too late because we're recording this on Tuesday night for operational reasons, Kieran, and it's probably for the best because about 2 hours ago we had barely any stories to talk about, and then suddenly we had a whole rush. And as you're holding a phone up in front of you in what looks like a one-star TripAdvisor apartment, and as I've got a cat that she seems okay but may have to be rushed to the vet, let's crack on with this week's news. I just love the fact, Karen, I was generally discussing with you, not in fact at the live gig last week, that we've barely mentioned Barcelona. Ooh, it's all gone very quiet on the Barcelona the Barcelona basket case front has gone very quiet, and then lo and behold, 3 stories in the same pod. So let's get the Barcelona stories out of the way, Kieran. And
yes.
first of all, the most the most benign, shall we, or the least worrying, if you're a Barcelona fan, about their fixtures list in December.
Yes, it could be that they will be playing against Atletico in the good old US of A. La Liga do seem to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder that the Premier League has overtaken La Liga in terms of popularity and in terms of ability to generate global interest in terms of broadcast revenue. And therefore, there is a movement towards hosting matches overseas. Now, at present, it's very much a one-off. This is on the back of FIFA relaxing the rules as to where matches can take place. And people will, of course, point out that Wrexham and Cardiff and it's Berwick Rovers, Berwick Rangers, all play in England when they're not in England. So, why can't Barcelona and Atletico Madrid play in another country? If this proves to be popular, and it will sell out, and if the numbers look good, which they will, because American fans see no issue with paying extremely large amounts for tickets. There's the culture of American fandom is different to ours. They're not chippy when it comes to more than 30 quid for a ticket. And then you say, well, if it's going to be, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, and if La Liga says, well, we're perfectly okay playing matches in the US of A, and I suspect there might be some objections from an environmental point of view in terms of carbon footprint, but that can always be, yeah, you can always buy carbon or bury carbon, but by some sort of trading. So I don't see that being an over issue. What happens if La Liga then decides, well, we're going to go to the highest bidder? And you then start to move to countries with perhaps a less liberal view of the world, although the liberal view of the world that itself might be disappearing in the United States very soon. And where is your home? Where is your identity? If this starts to be the thin end of the wedge, and my concern is not in respect of this match, but it's more of the case that we've seen Trevor Birch, our very good friend, come out fighting, in terms of matches taking place overseas, as far as the EFL is concerned. And Trevor says, yeah, effectively, over my dead body. And that appears to be the response of most fans. But if Premier League club owners say, look how much money they are making in La Liga, we need to be competitive with La Liga. And then, of course, you get a race to the bottom in terms of where matches are taking place. It effectively could become an auction of popularity. And on the back of that, how many matches will you get to see at Selhurst Park? And and let's face it, let's be honest, we both know where our clubs are in terms of global appeal, but the big clubs need somebody to play against, and we are members of the Premier League, so it's it's a watch and see. It will be a very hard sell by Premier League club owners, but I'm not saying that it won't be an attempt to sell. Where this would leave the game in terms of the independent regulator, a lot depends on FIFA's politics, because if Gianni Infantino decides that he doesn't like the Premier League for whatever reason, he says, well, the government or the independent regulator can't ban this type of activity because that's government interference. So wait and see.
It's yet another story, Kieran, which makes you think, do you know what? I don't want to be in the Premier League anymore. And luckily, our manager seems to agree with me. So that's resolving itself. Berwick playing in Scotland for historical, geographical reasons. TNS playing European games in Shrewsbury for operational reasons. It's very different to one of the highest profile fixtures in Spanish football being played in Miami. Leaving aside the non-financial aspects of it, it's the Spanish league, Kieran. I don't think it's beyond the realms of comprehension to assume those games should be played in Spain. Leaving aside the fact that the Premier League, the fabled 39th game, which is the Hitchcock film I would love to see, the 39th game. What is the 39th game? Well, it will involve Man United, sir, I imagine. I mean, for a start, Barcelona season ticket holders, are they going to be recompensed? Atletico Madrid, are they being consulted in this? It's the thin end of a shocking wedge, Kieran. It really is. Yeah, and again, it's one of those things that strikes me with the Spanish football going, right, we can't have our Super League, then we'll do this to nose up European football. It's not right, Kieran. I don't care what financial benefits are made from it. And as you say, we all know who you mean by the highest bidder. We're talking about Saudi Arabia. So if we then get a trance of fixtures from the top 5 leagues being played in Saudi Arabia every season, then we might as well all give up, go away, let them have a Super League, sod it. It's just out of order.
Well, already, it's either the Spanish or the Italian Super Cup takes place in Riyadh. Now, my view is that if you want to see Arsenal play Manchester United in Miami, arrange it as a pre-season friendly. And in fact, that's what the clubs tend to do. And those matches will still sell out. I genuinely don't think you'll get a huge increase in terms of broadcast revenue because the Premier League already has extremely lucrative deals. Uh, it's nice to watch a game, and I can understand. Look, I'm not being disrespectful to American fans, American soccer fans of Liverpool and Manchester United and Arsenal and so on. But what I would say to them, if you want to see Liverpool play Manchester United, if you want to go and see Arsenal play Spurs, you would love it at Anfield. You would love to be there at the Emirates or White Hart Lane Mark II, whatever they want to call it, because then you will see a genuine atmosphere. And I think the other thing that we have to take into consideration, and this is one of the things which I picked up when we had our guest Ian Graham on the show recently, and we were talking about home advantage. Well, be careful what you wish for, because if that's going to be the route down which some clubs want to go, you are going to lose that home advantage because your matches will be watched. Yeah, I'm not saying that the American fans of English clubs or the Saudi fans of English clubs or the Chinese fans are any less passionate, but they do not have the collective response in the way that fans. Yeah, they don't know the songs in the same way. They don't react in the same way. It is becoming more of an entertainment exercise, and more of an entertainment event, and that's not why we fell in love with football.
We have a couple of fans at the Parsons Arms, Kieran. Akos comes from Hungary. Mikel comes from Finland. That's fine. They save their money up. They come to see Palace 4 times a year. If you can afford a Miami season ticket, Kieran, you can afford a flight over here. And I hate to say this to our global fans. A Palace fan in Thailand isn't as important as a Palace fan in Croydon. It's as simple as that. It's lovely that they support Palace because they've chosen us because of their kit or the nickname or whatever it is. But you don't get a ticket before a Palace fan in Croydon. I know that sounds terribly parochial, but we're a community, and clubs can't have it both ways. Clubs can't sell the passion and the atmosphere. It's a local derby. You can't have that if you're playing that game in Miami. It's
No,
as
no.
simple as that. And the local fan comes first. The Barcelona season ticket holder comes. I watch the NFL games on TV in Wembley. My American brother was furious. He missed out on a couple of Denver Broncos games when they had to play at Wembley a few seasons ago. Absolutely fine. And I perfectly understand. The NFL shouldn't be played in London or Frankfurt. It should be played in Denver or wherever it is. It just infuriates me. It's an odd thing to say on a football finance pod, but the lack of understanding from people who run clubs for their actual fans is incredible. I'm lost for words, Kieran. We're only a third of the way through the Barcelona bit already.
I think you said an interesting thing there.
Good.
You said the people who are running the club on behalf of fans, but
Well,
they're
yeah.
not. They're running the clubs
Yeah.
on behalf of themselves.
Yeah, of course.
And that is an unintended consequence, perhaps, of where we are in the modern football landscape, in terms of there is a huge disconnect between some owners and many of the fan bases. Now, I think we are both fortunate. We might, I appreciate Steve Parish probably isn't top of your pops at present, but you will be the first to acknowledge he is Palace through and through. You can question people's decision making, but not his love for the club. And I think whilst we've got custodians of clubs with that mindset, you're okay. But once you start to sell clubs to the highest bidder, as we have seen over the course of effectively since 2003, when Abramovich came into the game, then they might see things through a different lens and a financial lens. And this is a financial show, but I think we are football fans first, and we can see the conflict. We saw with Super League and we saw with Project Big Picture what the Glazers and John Henry really think of local football fans. They hold them in utter contempt, as we will see with some of the stories later on in the show. And that's an awkward thing to deal with, because who has the balance of power in respect of football? Is it the fans or is it the owners?
Yeah, I should point out, in fairness to Miko, our Finnish Palace fan, and to Akos, our Hungarian Palace fan, they've forgotten more about Palace than I ever knew. I mean, they are proper mad, obsessive Palace fans, and Miko is very Finnish. So I really don't want to upset Miko because he's very. I've paraphrased PG Woodhouse before, but it is very easy to tell the difference between a ray of sunshine and Miko when he comes over from Helsinki. Love you, mate.
When we started writing our thoughts down on paper, it opened up endless possibilities. Ideas could grow beyond the borders of the mind, and it changed the world. Somewhere along the way, we lost touch with paper, distracted by devices made for every purpose except thinking and focus. On edge, waiting for the next notification. But what if new technology didn't pull us away from paper, but brought us closer to it? Listen. That's not paper. It's the sound of the new Remarkable Paper Pro, rewriting the future. A paper tablet with a true color ink display, gentle reading light, and unheard of tactility, with digital features for taking notes, thinking, and organizing, without any distractions. Paper is about to change the world again. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today.
UEFA have beaten Barcelona this week, Kieran.
Yes, they have. We spoke sort of 2 years ago when it was very much the rage for Barcelona to produce rabbit after rabbit after rabbit out of a series of hats in order to comply with the La Liga financial rules. And I will get somebody from La Liga. We know somebody from La Liga who's friendly towards the show, and we'll get them to come on and just to have a chat about the mechanics of the Spanish cost control rules. So I'll make that a to do for myself. But what Barcelona have done is they have sold the future sort of internal broadcasting rights, i.e. Barcelona TV. They've sold they're 49% of the next 10 or 20 years worth of merchandise sales or sales from the Barcelona Museum, which is effectively, and we said this at the time, it's the use of payday loans in order to comply with the short-term activities of the club. And what Barcelona have done is they've said, right, we're going to take 10 years worth of internal TV rights. We're going to take 10 years or 20 years worth of merchandise, and we're going to stick them all into our 2022 or 2023 accounts. Now, I looked at that and I felt uncomfortable in terms of the accounting treatment, but the auditors have signed them off. But auditors, schmauditors, a lot of the time, as far as I'm concerned. It's unusual for us. Fair play to UEFA. They've turned around. They said, well, you cannot treat these as normal revenues, and therefore you cannot put these into your FFP, or what is now called FSR, financial and sustainability rules calculations. And this is going to put Barcelona into a even more stickier wicket than we saw England trying to bat on in the recent test in Pakistan, and it could end up with a pretty much a steamroller performance there as well. So that's the ruling. We await to see Barcelona's response, and I suspect they'll do the traditional puppy dog eyes. We're sweet and innocent. It's just a pure coincidence that it's dug us out of a financial mess of our own making. And as much as I love the romance of the socios model, and people unfamiliar with the Barcelona model and that of many other Spanish clubs, is that the club is owned by its members and the members appoint the president. That means that if you want to become a president, as we might be seeing in other countries around the world at present, is that you tell people what they want to hear rather than necessarily what's in the best interests of the club as a whole. And this has led to a succession of Barcelona presidents or wannabe presidents saying, "Vote for me, and I will sign such and such a player. I will, and fans love the idea of clubs spending money because we have become browbeaten. We've been a mindset has been created that bigger is better when it comes to spending money in respect of football. So presidents that try to get elected on a platform of spend, tend to be very popular. But as Viv Nicholson discovered, it doesn't always work.
Mm.
That's the BAFTA gone this week,
Yeah.
I presume.
Yes, for I don't know what age it's the early 60s. Yeah. Viv Nicholson won something called the Football Pools Kids back in the day,
Yes.
and when asked what she was going to do with the money, she said, "I'm going to spend." I can't imagine the Barcelona president would have as part of his manifesto, "Vote for me, and we'll move at least 3 fixtures a year to Miami," for a start. I'd also. This is a football podcast, but it was astonishing to watch England's cricketers watching the opposition spinners actually spin the ball. It's just like it's the last thing they expected. What's he doing?
Yes.
Spinning. He's spinning. I don't know, Kieran. You know, my ability to speak foreign languages is limited. I can say, "I'm sorry, I can't speak Portuguese" in Portuguese. I don't know any Catalan, so I don't know what the Catalan is for not the sharpest knife in the box. But it seems to me that the people, this third story, Kieran, indicate that whatever the Catalan version of not the sharpest knife in the box is, some of them are in charge of Barcelona.
They are indeed. And just to give you a little bit of the backstory here, this is in relation to a bit of detective work undertaken by the Organised Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. And it is good to have independent investigative forensic journalism taking place in the world because there are too many things taking place which are being swept under the carpet. This story did break last week. They originally contacted me probably about 6 to 8 weeks ago in relation to this story. And we went through the mechanics, and it's all been sort of locked down and NDA'd and so on. And they wouldn't tell me the name of the club at the time, but it does involve Barcelona. And what has happened? This is to do with the sale to Barcelona of Lewandowski, who is a magnificent player, and I think that the fee was around about 40 million euro. Now, what you find in relation to a player transaction is that there's quite a few people that get a slice of the action. One of whom would be Pina Zahavi, the super agent, for want of a better phrase, but also there are lawyers involved. And there was a lawyer involved in respect of this particular transaction called Michael Demon. And Barcelona received an invoice, and it said from Michael Demon, and then it was sort of Z47QZX@gmail.com. That they didn't seem to, they didn't seem to think, that's not really passing the smell test. I'd expect it to have the name Michael Demon in the email, but it didn't. And I'd like, as part of the agreement, I'd like a million euros transferred to my bank account in respect of the work undertaken, in respect of this transfer of registration. And Barcelona did absolutely diddly squat due diligence, and they said, right, okay, yeah, your bank account numbers there. We'll send off a million euro to you, and it was a bank account in Cyprus. I'm normally quite cynical in relation to Cyprus, even though I'm not a cynic, and this isn't a cynical show. But because having taught there, Cyprus is it is the EU's money laundering centre, as far as I'm concerned, which was probably why they employed me to wander across and do one or two things there. And the Cypriot bank did a bit of checking and said, we're not convinced that this is a legitimate bank account. And they stopped the transfer of money. So that the money had effectively left Barcelona's bank account, but it wasn't being accepted in Cyprus by the recipient because the Cypriot bank, and fair play to them, they really saved. Embarrassed. Well, not. I think the embarrassment is to Barcelona, but at least they saved Barcelona, and they sent that back. And it turned out that Michael Demon had been some form of victim of hacking. But this is the nature of speculative fraud today. Let's say that there is a transfer, and you get to hear who the parties are. Well, there's nothing to stop. Let's say that um, we're we, we, we've agreed to do a gig um, for a show, somewhere, and we agree a fee, and somebody gets to hear about how much we're being paid, or guesses how much we're being paid, and then they create an invoice, and it's from Kevin and Kieran at gmail.com, or something like that. And they say, oh, well, it's Kevin and Kieran. It's got to be Kevin and Kieran. This is the amount. That seems about right. And the other party pays. Can you see that unless you're sending money off in good faith, in the era of digital, it is so easy to transfer large sums of money, and therefore you've got to do your due diligence. The number of emails I get on a regular basis for you've been fined for not doing this, or you've got a parking fine which turns to be spurious, and so on. And I'm going, yeah, I may have done, and I may have been in that city at the time. Then you start to question yourself, and then I always say to people, check the email address, because if it is q74@hotmail.com, the chances are it's not from your local council. But Barcelona, they did nothing, and they're supposed to be a professional organisation. They are a 700-800 million euro a year business, and they've not got proper checks and controls. And it makes you wonder. This is the one which did get found out. Have there been others which have occurred on which they decided not to go public on because it would be so embarrassing?
I mean, Kieran, that could only be funnier if his name was Ian Michael Andrew Demon, and it says, "Pay, I'm a demon. I'm a demon. Bank of Narnia, sort code 666666." I mean, really, it's just it almost beggars belief, Kieran. I mean, it's not funny because they've been. Yeah, I get these strange emails on a weekly basis from some chap called Producer Guy. I really generally don't know who he is, but I tend to take no notice of them, Kieran, because I think he's after money. Chelsea's squad, Kieran, the size thereof is a matter of some bemusement to every other fan in the country. But one of the fringe players has been frozen out of the first team, Kieran.
Yes, and people might think, well, why are we dealing with this on the price of football? And the reason why, and this is in respect on Josh Acheampong. Apologies if I've pronounced his name incorrectly there, Josh. It looks as if Chelsea is a promising young player. Uh, Chelsea want to tie him up to a long-term deal. And the story which is broken today in The Athletic is that he wasn't comfortable with the deal. It could have been the length of time. It could have been the actual terms offered. So therefore, he he expressed his right to not sign a piece of paper that was in front of him, and we all have that right. Chelsea's response is the one that concerns me. They've said, in which case, Josh, you're not going to be given an opportunity to play for the first team, and we're also going to freeze you out of the under-21. So that if you're not even going to be playing in the EFL Cup competition, we're going to put you into a position of freezing your career. And he's a young person who's entitled to do what he considers to be best for his career. The reason why I think we're covering this story is in respect of the Diarra case, which broke a couple of weeks ago, which indicated that if a club takes steps to make life awkward for a player, then the player is entitled to say, I am being restricted in terms of my ability to have freedom of movement. And we should all cherish things such as freedom of movement, because it's not until these things are taken away, and there are people who are trying to take them away, at present in many other countries where it's no fun, where you've got to walk around with your papers, or where you are being followed because who you talk to and so on. That this could be another example of where FIFPro and the Professional Footballers Association might decide, well, hold on, this is a restriction of the ability of one of our members to enhance their career. And therefore, could this form part of a test case, or could it form part of the collective bargaining agreement that if a club chooses to take the same view as Chelsea, if Chelsea don't want Josh to play for them, they should simply say, look, can we just go and rip up your contract? Let's agree to go our separate ways. But they're not, because they see him as a commodity rather than as a young man trying to get a career in a very competitive industry. The way that he's being treated is absolutely appalling. The way he's being treated is also entirely in keeping with what we've seen from Chelsea over the course of recent months, with particular reference to Conor Gallagher. Who was in a broadly similar position, except Conor Gallagher happened to be Chelsea's captain last season and was therefore more valued in the market and therefore has a higher profile in relation to his movements.
It's a tricky one to discuss in detail at the moment, Kieran, because it is a breaking story. So, I mean, Chelsea would argue that they do want him, which is why they've offered him a contract. They want him to be part of the Chelsea setup. And no doubt he would argue that, why should he sign a 6-year, 7-year contract that ties him to a club where he may never play for the first team? So it's an interesting, but the response does seem to be one we need to keep an eye on, because, as you say quite rightly, what we have to remember is that they're not assets; they're young people who, I imagine, at the moment is in a state of some shock and despair at what's happened. 1 minute you're in seventh heaven because you're part of the Chelsea setup, and the next minute you're frozen out, and it looks like you. Again, we'll do what we always do, Kieran. We'll suggest to Chelsea that we would love to hear their point of view on this, and we would. And that leads us to a club we've been asking to hear their point of view from for years, or a person. A weekly trip to Reading, Kieran, unfortunately. I can't tell you how I look forward to not being able to say that. But this one involves a winding up petition, Kieran. Don't panic yet, Reading fans, but I don't know if this might be one of those winding up petitions that's actually good news for Reading fans, is it?
Well, it's in respect of a company called Rene Sports Management, which is Reading's parent company. Now, Rene Sports Management, exactly the same as Reading, has not published any accounts since 2022. It has chosen to contemptuously ignore its legal responsibilities with regards to the publication of the accounts. And I know the noises that one or two people at Reading are trying to put it. Oh, we're in the middle of a sale, and this might cause complications to the sale. That is utter hogwash. The accounts for the year ended the 30th of June 2023 have no implications or no consequential issues with regards to trying to sell the club in October 2021. This is Die Younger simply showing two fingers, or indeed perhaps just one finger, up at the Reading fan base, at the EFL, and at football in general, to say, I can do what the hell I want because I'm a billionaire. So first of all, fair play to James Earnshaw, who is the journalist at the Reading Chronicle. He didn't do a degree in journalism to have to spend his time trawling through Companies House or trawling through legal documents, and has ended up doing so. And I genuinely feel sorry for all the journalists, A, that they're having to do this, and B, because they end up having to talk to me a lot of the time as well on the back of it. And ironically, it looks as if this particular winding up order isn't connected to the non-publication of the accounts, but I think it has come from the lawyers who were acting on behalf of Reading in relation to the failed sale of the club to Rob Cohig, the former Wickham owner, and it looks like they've not been paid. And there's certain people who you shouldn't piss off in life, and one would be your legal advisors. I know a former club owner who didn't pay his QC at the time the money that was due to him, and that really isn't a very sensible thing to do, because if there's one thing that legal people know, it's the law. So again, this just shows the utter contempt with which professional people are held. And this is a sense of entitlement because somebody's been successful in their own career and become a billionaire on the back of it. They think that they can do what the hell they want.
I'm intrigued to hear what happened to this club owner, Kieran, because the way you said that indicates that he ended up at the bottom of a flyover on a motorway somewhere.
I can't possibly say.
I thought that would be your answer. Also, Kieran, are you suggesting, sir, that trawling through company's house is some kind of chore when you would happily spend your 24/7 doing just that?
Yeah, but for me, let's face it, I'm the person who was never invited to parties. So I've got nothing better to do with my life. I was the person that would spend my time at lunchtime. I invented a game involving a pack of cards and a grid from ace to king, and to play a game of cricket. And I'd have, if you got a 2 and a 4, then that was a dot ball, and so on. And I had it for each combination of cards. This was how dull my life was. And then that match would normally be between girls who I'd not yet spoken to, which was practically everybody in the sixth form, and pop stars. So it would be Gillian Jones caught Dave Hill of Slade, Bold Alvin Stardust 27, and things like that. So it's no wonder that I've ended up with my life wandering through company's house. But these young people, they got far better things to do with their time.
That's hats off to Gillian Jones. That's a handy little 27. That knock.
It was, yeah.
Well done, Gillian. I would have invited you to a party, Kieran, just on the back of that board, that card game. I'd just never mind. Take the only ones off that record player. We're playing Kieran's made up cricket game. Who's batting first? Gillian Jones batting first, bowling first. He needs to talk to her, doesn't he? I love this story, Kieran. You're in Merseyside. It's not far from you. The Tranmere owner, with just a simple comment, Kieran, has set. I hesitate to use this word, Kieran, but even before we discuss this story, I'm going to say it's bollocks. But it's there in legit news outlets like the BBC. But it's just one. I'll leave over to you, Kieran, for the details.
Well, we are. It is now 6 p.m. on Tuesday night, and I'm going to watch Tranmere Rovers play Grimsby Town tonight at Prenton Park. And part of the reason for that is one of my colleagues at work, her nephew is playing for Grimsby. So we're going to be going up the Mariners and going before Harry Haddock. So I'm actually heading en route as soon as we finish recording. So yes, Mark Palios has been responding to speculation involving the future of Tranmere Rovers, and he said he is in negotiations. He's confirmed that he's in negotiations to sell the club. I think we're looking at a price of around about £15 million. Now, we have mentioned, I think, a couple of weeks ago that Joe Tacopina, Donald Trump's one of Donald Trump's lawyers. I hope that Donald Trump has paid him. Knowing Donald Trump, that's not necessarily going to be the case. Is heading up a consortium, and I've heard from my our secret woollyback, as people on the world are known. Our secret woollyback, that there was going to be some revelations about high-profile celebrities who were part of this consortium. And apparently, one of these high-profile celebrities is ASAP Rocky. I've not heard of him, but he is apparently a musical artist, and he is the boyfriend of somebody called Rihanna. Who's also apparently somebody very famous. And this is sort of very much on the back of American celebrities have seen the success of Welcome to Wrexham. They've seen the increased profile of the football club and the increased value of the football club. Tom Brady, of course, has now got links with Birmingham City. We've got, I think, LeBron James. He's connected indirectly to Liverpool. It's become very sexy to be involved with soccer. And also, it's very cheap. If Tranmere Rovers are costing £15 million, compared to if you wanted to invest in an MLS expansion franchise, that would cost you probably in the region of $300 to $400 million, and that's just your franchise fee, and that's before you have got the stadium and recruit the squad. So investing in English football is seen as cheap. Mark Palios, again, friend of the show, and I know Mark well. I've got huge respect for both Mark and Nicola in terms of the way that they have turned around the finances of Tranmere Rovers. So he's looking to move on. He has set the club into a good financial position, and he's marketing the club as, well, hold on, Liverpool's big enough for three clubs. Do you want to go and buy into Merseyside and then sell to the celebrities? Look, it is the home of the Beatles, and working in this very proud city, it is a very musical city as well. As any fan of the Teardrop Explodes and Echo and the Bunnymen and Half Man Half Biscuit, who themselves, of course, are from Tranmere and big Tranmere Rovers fans, would testify. So that's the position, and it does look as if some progress has been made on this deal. I think certain aspects of it may have stalled, but Mark Palios has been on to TalkSport earlier today and was very much selling the positives, and there certainly are positives from buying into English football. My big reservation in all of this is what happens when the celebrities get bored, because you're not happy with what's happening at Palace today or over the past 2 or 3 months, and there's been times when I felt exactly the same about my club. But deep down, we both know we are supporting our clubs until we are put into the ground. When it comes to celebrity owners, you don't know how much of this is a passing fad. What happens if they do lose interest? There's already talk about, it'd be great, if Rihanna goes and plays a gig at Prenton Park, there's more chance of you and I playing a gig at Prenton Park. That's the downside. So it's an intriguing thing, and this is very much on the back of Welcome to Wrexham. Reynolds and McKennie have first mover advantage. They got in first. They did a fantastic selling job to the trust that were owning Wrexham at the time. The TV show is a magnificent piece of TV, and it's made. I've worked in Wrexham. I've been to Wrexham as a fan. It's a great place to visit, and it's done a fantastic amount of work for tourism. But you can't replicate that 30 or 40 times because there simply isn't the TV audience for it.
Just to clarify, Kieran, the reason the story from Tranmere got such traction today, especially on social media, was that when Mark Palios was asked what the timescale was for the takeover, he said ASAP. I think he probably meant as soon as possible rather than ASAP, because I don't know if it's even pronounced ASAP, because the second A is a $sign. So I would pronounce it as the. Also, Mark Palios didn't do it with a big wink. He didn't turn his baseball cap back to front. So I think maybe people are putting two and two together and making. I don't know. I shouldn't think Mark Palios has got a baseball cap. And I apologise, Mark, for that comment. I think Prenton Park is on our list of potential live gigs coming up. So yes, there is more chance. We'll be there before Rhiannon, as that's my guess.
Yes.
You've got to go to Tranmere. You've got to go to Tranmere Grimsby, Kieran. I'm going to the 10th anniversary of Palace and Proud, the Palace LGBTQ plus group, this evening at Sellers Park, which is a less cheery party than we thought it would be when it was arranged 4 weeks ago. So let's crack on with the stories, especially as the next three stories, Kieran, before we get to our last one. There's no real room for levity in any of these next three stories. So I think we can just report these and move on to the first one. Unfortunately, a story that we've been keeping an eye on is Inverness Caledonian Thistle.
Yes, the directors have formally announced that the club is going to go into administration. Um, they raised, I think, around about £85,000 of the target figure of £200,000. My understanding from our secret Scotsman is that this will trigger an immediate 15-point penalty for Cali, given that they are already second bottom of the third tier of Scottish football. This is a fair chance that they're going to be playing in the lowest tier. So trying to attract somebody, which will be the job of the administrator, is not going to be easy. The TV money is going to be low. The fan base has more than halved since the club was in the Premiership. So I think recent crowds have been 5,000. Sorry, have been 1,500. There, in my view, there's been financial management because they've been spending checks which their bank balance really didn't justify in terms of player recruitment and so on. They were banking on selling some real estate for a project which wasn't pie in the sky, but they were counting their chickens far too early in respect of those. So that's the position, I guess, that we're in at present. Um, my concern in respect of the administration is that the administrators will effectively only accept the job if there is sufficient money to pay the administrators. And as we've seen in the case of Wigan Athletic and Derby County, the administration of both of those clubs cost in the region of £2 million. Now, I don't think it will be as expensive at Cali, and I sincerely hope it won't be. But it, there's got to be significant amounts of money to be allowed the administrators to pay their own fees, and also to then move on with having some form of football club. The first thing they've got to do is to sell any assets they've got. I don't know whether they've got playing assets which will generate many fees. If you're second bottom of the third tier of Scottish football, I don't want to sound insulting or patronising. The chances are that you've not got the next Kenny Dalglish or Gordon Strachan, playing for you, and therefore, where are you going to generate cash from? So it is a genuine cause for concern. Um, what one hopes that they manage to get through this, or it could be the fact that the directors have said we are planning to appoint an administrator. Does that also mean that they're in negotiations with a party with a potential sale of the club to somebody to rescue the club? The advantage of a club going into administration, clearly, the downside is A, creditors don't get paid, and B, you've got these points deduction. The upside is that you only acquire the assets of the club, and the creditors aren't being paid. They only get their slice of the action from the sale proceeds of the club's assets itself.
That's an interesting twist. Sadly, you'd argue that their biggest asset is the manager, and I'm not sure how they can monetize him.
Yeah, I mean Duncan Ferguson is uh, is a multi-layered individual, and anybody that just views him as an aggressive footballer is very, very much wide of the mark.
Well, no, what you mean is there's more to him than that, Kieran. I think one of the layers is aggressive footballer. I think we can take that as a given, Kieran. But
Yes,
he
yes.
also watches only connect. He watches only connect and likes kittens. That's what we're saying. This next story,
Yes.
Kieran. This next story regarding Roman Abramovich. It was such a huge story for 3 months, and then it just disappeared completely. I'd actually forgotten about it, which is to my shame. But it involves the money, the assets that were frozen when Russia invaded Ukraine.
That's right. Following the UK government's freezing of Roman Abramovich's assets, and I think there have been some cynical views that because the government didn't want to stop Chelsea from playing football, that Roman Abramovich was not subject to the same urgency in terms of applying sanctions to him, and therefore that allowed him to transfer certain amounts of money out of the country. Now, there's no evidence to support that, by the way, but this is the nature of speculation. Chelsea was sold for £2.5 billion to Clearlake Capital and Todd Bowley. That money was put into what we sometimes refer to an escrow account, effectively account which can't be touched by Roman Abramovich. He can't take that money out. And Roman Abramovich put up a statement on the Chelsea website to say these funds will go to the victims of the conflict, without defining victims of the conflict. And I would argue that victims of the conflict include those young Russian men who have been conscripted into the Russian army and thrown to their deaths. They've just been used. It's terrible, as cannon fodder by the Russian army. The Russian state is very self-serving and corrupt, as we're aware. So we are, we're a couple of years later. That money is still sitting in the bank account, and the reason for this is that there have been objections to the UK government distributing that money to relief efforts in Ukraine itself. Again, it's depressing. The lawyers are involved, and the lawyers are using delaying tactics. People will say, well, hold on, if the UK government's got involved and has frozen its assets, surely they can do what the hell they want. And I spoke to our secret member of parliament
Oh, crikey,
in respect of this.
We've got one of them now as well, have we?
We've got one of them as well.
Wow.
And said, any chance that you could just confirm the situation for us? And the reply to me was, and I quote, the money has been frozen, which is not the same as it being seized. If the UK government had seized the money, then they could do what the hell they want. But the agreement in terms of the sanctions against the Russian oligarchs based in the UK was that we're going to freeze your assets and you will not be able to benefit from their proceeds at the present moment in time. Now, what happens at a later point in time, should there be some form of resolution to the invasion of Ukraine by Putin, we'll have to wait and see. So at present, something's sitting on the money. There has been some speculation that Roman Abramovich's children are saying, well, hold on, that's part of our inheritance. We don't want that money to go to the victims of what's happening in Ukraine. And therefore, there's been objections from trusts, some of those trusts which are based overseas. Some of those trusts may also be based in Cyprus, which circles back to the place which is the money laundering capital of Europe.
Talking of circling back, Kieran, we've already mentioned FIFA and football in general's tin ear, and more than 100 professional women's footballers agree with us, Kieran.
Yes, this is a letter signed by 140 female players from a variety of countries around the world. And this is expressing disappointment in respect of FIFA announcing Aramco, which is the Saudi Arabian effective state oil company, as one of its global sponsors. And it looks like this is a multi-year deal, which will take us through to at least 2027, which is the next FIFA World Cup for women, as well as the Men's World Cup, which is taking place in the United States in 2026. The objection by the players is on two grounds. Firstly, in respect of individual rights. So, as we know, homosexuality is not allowed in Saudi Arabia, and these players have said, we do not feel that we can be seen to be promoting Aramco's products or the Aramco brand, or being asked to get involved with adverts for it or anything like that, because we stand up for LGBT rights. And one has to be honest, there is a much greater presence of LGBT individuals in women's football than there is in men, for a variety of reasons. So you can understand why they've taken that view. The second issue, which I think they're probably on slightly thinner ice, was, well, hold on, Aramco is an oil company, in terms of environmental climate control issues. There is a belief held by many people that Saudi Arabia is taking activities which are aimed at slowing down the transition from carbon fuels to more sustainable forms of fuel going forwards. But the reason why I say I think this is a slightly more complex issue is that if you take a look at FIFA's other global sponsors, senior sponsors in respect of the World Cup and so on, you've got Adidas, who have close links to Adolf Hitler. You've got Hyundai. Well, that is a carbon fuel consuming organization. It's a car company. You've got Emirates Airlines, environmental, and also it's uh, from a human rights issue. You've got Coca-Cola, which is high sugar products, not healthy eating. You've got Visa, financial services. Let's just remember who completely trashed the world economy in 2007. Oh, it was the global financial market. So trying to find a global sponsor who can satisfy all accusations of being for want of a better phrase, a clean organisation, I think is challenging, stroke impossible. But it is interesting to see that we now have a degree of political activism coming from professional footballers. There are many fans who will say football and politics shouldn't mix, and footballers should stay in their lane, which is not something I personally would subscribe to. Um, and the fact that players are coming together to express their views um, is more indicative of footballers are a lot smarter than people credit them with, give them credit for.
I suppose, as you say, Kieran, you could take every Premier League club, every WSL club, you could find a reason to object to the front of shirt sponsors of all of them. Essentially, I mean, Palace Women is one example. It's a company that transports oil, so there are many Palace fans, women and men, who are unhappy with that. Huge gambling companies, so on and so forth. But the open letter from the 140 women described this as a punch in the stomach to women's football. And what I find interesting, Kieran, is that given our discussion on FIFA and their tin ear, is that without having seen the full announcement from FIFA unveiling Aramco as a sponsor, I think even 5 years ago they would have added some sort of sweetener by saying, £5 million is going to women's grassroots football around the world, and they don't even bother to do that now. They just say, here's a Saudi oil giant giving us money, take it or leave it. And the fact is, if your answer is leave it, then you have to leave football, because there literally is nothing you can do. You can't refuse to wear the shirt, or you can refuse to endorse the product. But most players' contracts will have things in it that say they have to endorse the product. So it's just, again, the theme of this episode is that the people running football do not give a toss about the people playing football. And to complete the circularity, Kieran, to complete the worm Ouroboros, the head of this pod is eating the tail of this pod. We come back to FIFA and Miami.
Yes. Kevin, when Crystal Palace were promoted to the Premier League in 2013, is that right?
Correct, May the 28th, yes.
That's right. Did you give a toss whether you finished third, fourth, fifth, or sixth in the playoffs?
Not afterwards, no.
No. What was the most important thing?
Yes, no. Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, of course not. No. I do. When Palace are not involved, I still think it's outrageous that the team in sixth place get into the playoffs. But there you go. No, I did not give a toss. You're quite right, is the answer.
Yes. So when it comes to American football and the MLS, they have a system in which they've got a league system. And also, a bit like rugby league here. You then have a series of playoffs, and you have the final match, which normally plays at Old Trafford. So effectively, the grand final, and that determines the winner. What we have in the United States is Inter Miami, who purely coincidentally happen to have what's his name? Lionel. It's not
No.
Lionel Blair, is it? It's Lionel
Forget-
Messi. That's the one. Um,
all I will say in relation to that is I imagine Lionel Messi is a lot easier to deal with than Lionel Blair was. We
I can
we
imagine indeed. Yes.
we haven't got time, but I will. I might even share it or not. I will tell you a couple of Lionel Blair stories. When yes. Anyway, crack on.
um,
You've got Tranmere to get to.
Yes. As we know, FIFA have been struggling to sell A, the broadcasting rights, and B, to get sponsorship for the FIFA World Club Cup competition. And we said at the time, they will find a way of getting Messi and Ronaldo into this competition to boost ticket sales. Well, they've achieved their first objective because Inter Miami have won the Shield, which is the effectively if you win the most matches, if you earn the most points in the system before the playoffs take place, before you become effectively the MLS champions. So spontaneously, they've gone through their reasons. How can we possibly get Messi into this competition next year? And the Eastern Conference Shield champions is now the lucky winners of an invite to the World Club Cup champions and championship next year for FIFA. And lo and behold, Lionel Messi is going to be there. They're just lying. Well, not even lying, but they're just doing what they want in plain sight. Um, if this was going to be the means through which this particular competition was going to be allocated a place, why not say so when the competition was being created? But the reason for this, and I'm not a cynic, I'm not a cynic, Kevin, is that they were waiting to find out which possible bauble that they could hang on to into Miami and therefore accelerate them through into the final of this tournament. And there should be American representation. I'm not, the tournament's taking place in America. You need an American club there, but the false method through which it's been allocated to Inter Miami is further evidence of the mafiosa way in which Gianni Infantino operates FIFA.
Thank you to everyone who's donated to the pod via our Patreon page. If you'd like to make a small monthly contribution to the pod as well, that'd be very kind of you. It'll get you access to our chat community and our regular quizzes. You can do that by going to patreon.com/priceoffootball. But we will have news for you in a week or so about some possible changes to the benefits you lovely people can get. Obviously, you won't be the first to know. Producer Guy will be the first to know. Kieran will be second. I'll be third. Or possibly Finlay will be third and I'll be fourth. But we'll let you know. If you've got a question you'd like answered on our regular Tuesday questions pod, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter X. You can find us on our YouTube channel. Our book is out now in paperback. It's selling all right, I understand. You can find details on our website, priceoffootball.com. Or you can stroll down to your local bookshop if you have some and see if you can spot us amidst the astonishing array of books about football. Kieran, my word, there's some books about football and some crackers. So as I say, we'll be back with our regular questions pod on Tuesday. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thanks as always to everybody for getting in contact through such a variety of means of communication. We do appreciate it. Just another reminder that we are doing a benefit gig for Brighton and District Samaritans, and that is taking place on Friday, the 15th of November at the Unitarian Church, which is a magnificent piece of architecture in the centre of Brighton. We are hoping to have a guest or two as well, but we'll announce those in due course. And as to support this, I'm giving up my most prized football possession. It's Paul McShane's signed shirt mounted and certificated from Crystal Palace versus Brighton Hove Albion, 18th of October 2005. It's a special one-off white kit that Brighton had to wear because they went into the season with a red kit and a blue kit, not thinking we are playing Crystal Palace this season, who play in red and blue. So that was it's the shirt signed by the winning goal scorer of the match at Crystal Palace. That was the first time we'd beaten Crystal Palace in about 25 years. So it was a memento. So that's going up for an auction again. All proceeds to go to Brighton Samaritans. So if anybody wants to bid for it, just take a look at my Twitter account. I will be reposting it. And dig deep. Dig deep. It's for a fantastic cause. And it's a genuine piece of football history if you're a Brighton fan.
I mean, fair play to Paul McShane managing to fit scoring that goal in between recording Heidi High. Good luck to him. Well done. I bid 35p. That's my opening bid. Also, I'll see if Andy Johnson will donate his hat-trick shirt from the Magic. We'll see. Probably not the right place to sell it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.